Okay, hello. In this video, and I'm going to try. This could go dangerously long, I should point out, but I'm going to try and keep it as short as possible because otherwise I'll end up wittering, and it could be like 40 odd minutes. I don't want that. Anywho, in this video, we're going to be taking the blueprints set up last time and using them to create a basic body. And this is just generally my workflow for creating bodies. So it's not necessarily correct for everybody. But it will give you a good idea of how to start a character or any character from a blueprint. There is one thing you need to know first. You need to understand. It's something that, when we go into the head and basically an entire body of anything, human, or monster or whatever you're creating, you need to understand flow lines. And I just want to spare a moment to just go over that. So I've just quickly gone over this with a pen. It's very, very rough, but it gives an idea. We have some fantastic lines on here, and these are the lines that follow the contours of the face. Now, if you've done drawing with me, like gesture drawing and that, you've got used to following the contours of objects. This is the same principle, but in 3D. And if you take the contours of the face, you can see that they create kind of the mesh. They give you a good idea of how the mesh will form. It's good practice. Some people are silly and actually draw straight on their face. I prefer Photoshop. But yeah, it kind of just gives you a good idea of what you're sort of going to be creating and how to lay it out, correctly. I mean, it's proper rough, but there you go. If you can understand flow lines and how they flow across the face and all the features, then you can pretty much nail this. It's just a mere study of anatomy. That's all it ever is. Anyway, I'll move on from that, but I'll refer back to it constantly. So, when it comes to characters and the way I start, okay, and I would like to point out, I'm not going to be doing the hands, I'm not going to be doing the head. I will probably do the feet though. These will be done in separate videos. This is purely the body. When I start the body though, I always start with the centre bit here. So I'm going to start with a box because I use box modelling, and I'll use this to create the basic torso. That was silly of me. Let's try that again. There we go. Okay, and I'm using 5 length segments, 3 width segments, and 3 height segments. The default is 4. So you need to change these to that if you're using my settings. The next thing I'm going to do is make this mesh transparent. And we do that by pressing Alt-X on the keyboard. Or, if that doesn't work for whatever reason, that's probably because you're in 2013 or 2012, which has a slight glitch with this sometimes. And you need to go into the object properties for that object and take it off by layer onto by object. I found this mostly happens if you pick up the design version instead of the normal version of Max. Doesn't seem to happen much on this version. Just pointing it out though. So you can untick or tick that. Okay. Anywho, so next you need to convert that to an editable poly, and that is it done. We can now move it into place sideways on as well. So it's important that you get used to using your viewports. Wow. So get to know the shortcuts. That'll be the best way to quicken up your workflows. So if we go front ways on, you can see these kind of start falling into place. We know that's going to be where the armpit is. That's going to be the middle of the arm and the upper of the shoulder. So you can kind of start seeing bits fall into place. But if we start sort of making that by pulling bits down and putting little bits up like this, and putting that's kind of alright where it is, pull that up. Yeah, we can start pulling this in. And what I might do at this point actually is center this. There we go. So remember to do that. And by the way, I realise I'm going to be going fast for this video, as I said. So if you do need to, feel free to rewind back at any point. scale that out as well. And notice I'm not doing it uniformly. I don't want any fat features. That's not that difficult with me. Okay, so just going to scale this off. Now, this is kind of where, you know, flow lines are going to start becoming really important. I'm going to start whittering on about them. Right? We're going to pull this down. Same on both sides. In fact, now is a very, very, very good time. Actually, not quite yet. I was going to say we'll split, but we're not quite yet. We're going to continue on down the legs here first. Okay, so I'm going to go right the way down to here. Left. And let's just shape the side a little bit. So pull that in. Pull that. Rotate it. Pull that up. So we're shaping the side also. Very important. This here is going to be the head, so we can start moving that into position. Okay. Start pulling this and just shaping it so it fits the reference relatively well. Okay. And the reason I obviously drag selecting is because there's ones behind as well that I want to be affected. So I'm making sure I select them also. Got to define the curve of the back to my backside there. And I'm just going to rotate that as well. And this is all part of trying to keep the flow lines correct. So I'll change that to yellow, could be fine. Scale that in. There we go. Pull that in like that. And I can't obviously see behind there, so I have to kind of guess where it's going to fall. But I know that my leg goes up there, so I know that it's got to look something like this. Okay, just clean up the flow lines so they all nicely flow down. And they should, I suppose, come out a little bit like this. So they should nicely be averaged out between them. There we go. Now at the moment you'll be going, but I've worked from a square, so it's blocky. Of course it is. It's a block. And we're going to fix that. Of course we are. But first we're going to create a giant massive split right the way down the centre of this model. And what this will gain us is this will set it up for allowing us to only do half the work, which will save us an enormous amount of time. And we're just going to move this down first, make sure everything else is in the correct place or correct dish. There'll be lots of changes to be made. Okay, so at the moment we've got this. Okay. So now I need to create a split. Select down the middle and use the connect tool. And what that'll do is that'll create a red line all the way through the middle, essentially a cut. Right, I love the connect tool, it's one of my favourite tools. And I'm going to delete this side. Right. Next, assuming the pivot is still in the centre, we can now mirror it. Okay, and using instance, this will mean that whatever changes we make on this side will happen to that side. Okay, and there's a little glitch on mine at the moment, 2013. I'm not sure what it's doing. It's not a massive problem, but it seems to invert it. So for now, to get around that, I'm just going to turn back face colour off. It might not do it on yours. I don't know if it's a 2013 thing or not, but I've recently been encountering it. Okay, anyway, so any changes I now make on this side affect that side. So we can start shaping it a little bit more. Start pulling that in. Okay, and pulling that down. Let's rotate it a notch. So you see it flows like this. But, as said, it is still square, and it shouldn't be. You know, this is not a square character, is it? This is a humanoid character who doesn't have square features. So the way to do this, start with just this one. Select all the edges like that. So just the front edge, like so, and simply pull it in. And a little bit like that. And you can see the curve forming like this. Okay? Right, and that is it. All you got to do then is go into side view and just re-establish the curve on this, and the same on the front, like so. And we have a curve. Simple. And there might even need to be changes again, where these things need bringing in, like so. There might be a few occasions where that might happen, but that's not bad. Same with this one here. So select it right the way up to the top, like that. Bring it in, back to the same place, and that should do it. Then it's just a matter of going in again and making sure that everything feels correct. So let's start pulling this up, neatening it out a little bit. There we go. Okay. Not bad. Not great, but not bad. There we go. So we should have that. And I kind of start setting us up for the arms. So we could start the arms, I suppose, from this. What we'll do is we will create a few simple cuts, and we should be able to do that. So the cuts we'll make, well, first things first actually, let's go in, let's neaten this up a little bit more. I'm not entirely pleased with this. Maybe that's a bit better. Okay, so they should be fairly even. I think the best course of action, pull this down. Okay. And then what we're going to do is we're going to weld this off. I don't think it's necessarily needed. And then we'll average this out using this to re-establish that. So we're kind of establishing a rib cage there. So you can probably be thinking about it now. You can probably get away with 4 instead of 5 cuts in the box. But no matter. Okay, so re-establishing some flow lines. Like so. There we go. And what will happen here is this will start to establish our arm. Or it will create our arm. What's the point? Okay, so this is what you're looking for. This shape. Right? This is what will create the arm. Now the next thing we've got to do, okay, is we've got to select the polygons. Okay, and in front, I'm going to bring that back in actually, clean that up. In front, I'm going to extrude that out, like so. Okay. And to straighten that, because we want that absolutely flat, we're going to use one of the planar tools. I'm going to use X. Now flatten it on X. So you'll notice now, it's absolutely flat. Then we're going to rotate that and position it accordingly, like so. And this just kind of sets up to make some further changes to our mesh. So we can bring that down now, further down like so. And I also want to bring some of these down too. But not forgetting to constantly check inside view, make sure it looks correct. Yeah, it feels okay to me. You can also bring these a little bit wider. Okay, so they don't need to be so thin. It can be wider still. Okay, perhaps I've gone a little bit overboard, admittedly. There we go, that's better. So still establishing that shape. That's what you've got to maintain. Because this is what defines our arm. Okay. Once we got that, you can see that we've got a sleeve. Yeah. And we can start tweaking it a little bit more if we like. Bringing these over. It's all about tweaking it constantly. You might have figured that out by now. I could tweak it all day. Fortunately, as I said, I want to keep this relatively short, so I'm not going to. What we can do then is continue to extrude that down. Bring that to the elbows. Okay, I'm going to rotate it round. And once it's roughly about right, we'll extrude the next one and bring that all the way down to the wrist. Okay, right, yeah, and then in side view, we can get it. We need to give it a little bit of a bend. So shift, select the next one, so it selects the loop, and make sure the arm's got a little bit of a bend to it. I'm going to over exaggerate that wrist a bit because it's a bit thin. But the wrist is never perfectly round like that anyway, so it's not quite correct. Okay, there's a bit, obviously, if you've got clothing, like I have there, then you need to create a fold. To do that, I always use the connect tool, my favourite tool. I use the slider, bring it down so far, about where it falls, and then I just expand it to however wide I need to make it. Select the loop there, connect again, so I'll make it central this time, and then pull it in to re-establish the width of the wrist. And simply pull it inside itself, and if you need to make it a bit wider, like I do, then do so. And there we go, we have a fold. And it might be the case where you have to go in, just move it ever so slightly, just to clean it up, but it should be okay. So there we go, that is the arms. The legs, very similar. So I'm going to first establish the shape of the legs, like so. Next, simply select in front here. I'm going to make that a little bit wider. So I'm going to make sure I've got the shape roughly right. Then I'm going to extrude them down to just the knee there. Okay, rotate, okay, and extrude it down towards the bottom of the leg. I'm going to rotate it so it faces in the correct direction to the reference. So I'll do that here as well. I'll do that with that. There we go. So everything must flow, must follow. I've said that many times now and won't get bored of it. Change it in side view. Keep switching views. Rotate it. Get it right. So we know that we need more cuts in here. That is apparent. Okay. but we will get to that in a second. Okay, so at the moment things are kind of going okay. The next thing we need to go over is deformation, and deformation is when you're doing animation. Now you need to make sure that you add extra cuts in places like the arms and anywhere where it's going to bend or there's going to be movement. For the simple reason, think of it kind of like a straw. If a straw neck didn't actually have any of those little loops in it, if you bent it, it'd be like any other part of the straw. It would just snap. It wouldn't perfectly curve. It's the same thing for a character. If you don't have extra cuts in there, because with the straw's neck, then it will just snap and it will look horrible. So you need to make it curve perfectly or deform perfectly, you need to add these extra cuts. So the way I kind of do it is there's several ways of doing it. You chamfer, okay, and I'll create an extra cut right there too. Then what I do is I pull that out a little bit. That establishes the dip in the elbow, and then rotate this. If I switch that to local, that should at least, it hasn't done me any favours. Okay, so I'm going to have to use this one instead in view. Rotate that, and rotate that also. And what we have established is the elbow. Simple enough. Okay, so now we have the elbow. It's the same principle with the leg. So if I go down, first I'm going to sort this out because this looks horrible. So the calf obviously needs more deformation, more shaping. I'm just going to pull that out. There we go. There we go. And it's the same thing for here on the leg. So the knee, I use chamfer. Okay, create a single split using connect. I'll simply pull it in a little bit. Now the knee's a tiny bit different because obviously it's a much bigger part. Okay, so do that, and in order to make it feel like a knee, there's always a little bit of tweaking involved. Pull that down, pull that up a little bit, and I always find that if you pull this down, have it just slightly sticking out, it gives that feeling of a kneecap. I don't want to go too overboard with it. It should be relatively subtle. I need to pull this in. There we go. Kneecap. Go to left view. I'll just make sure it all matches up. And then just make sure it flows nicely. There we go. Okay, so the same once again up here as well. So I'm going to create a split directly across here, connect, and this is where refinements start coming in. So start adding other little bits of detail. Start also focusing on the back side here. actually do it properly. Pulling it in. I've got quite baggy trousers, so you won't, you may not, on your character, or your person, whatever you're doing. Okay, but that is the legs established. Alright, so I can then start bringing that in, looking at other details. And also, once again, re-establishing those important flow lines. That bring definition. Okay. Right. Not too shabby. Pull that up a little bit. I'm going to rotate that a notch. Just for some refinements. And that's kind of it for the body there. The only thing would be the feet. And yeah, you can start them off, by all means. I'll show you quickly how. It's very similar to the hand. Okay, so a little quick inset. Just suck it in like so. Pull them up. Okay. And then we're simply going to extrude them down. So it's probably, yes, that's probably about right. Probably needs to be a bit thicker than that. But then this whole leg down here, I think needs to be thicker. Like that. There we go, that's better. So now we've established that, what we can do is then straighten it up a little bit. And I'm going to pull it in just a little bit less. And then extrude it down. And this is where you'll notice that it won't match up, so it's a little bit of a guessing game from here on. Better working from the side view for some of it. So I'm going to pull it down, I'm going to flatten it, not that one, Y, I'm playing that, and bring it right the way down to 0. Okay, and then I'm also going to do, I'm going to rotate it so it's pointing in that direction. I'm going to start creating a cut right about there. So what we'll start building at is this bit, the foot. Extrude that. Okay. I go into side view. Bring it down. Bring this up. Okay, so just get in there. Create another cut here. Connect all the way through it. Okay, I might actually slide it down here. There we go, that's a bit better. And cut it again. So pull that down. And then start really shaping it. We're pulling down the sides. And it will just set it up for creating a much better shoe later on. Of course we have to go in and we have to tweak these as well. This won't be quite right. Once again, just re-establishing some of those flow lines. So one thing I would do is select select the back bit there and just pull that down as well a little bit, so you can make this flow like that. The rest is just a matter of going in getting it as best you can. At the moment it's obviously going to be very blocky. Yeah, this is early on, but later on you can have more detailing. You know, you could split it, so if obviously it's not round enough for you, go in, use the chamfer tool to round it off a little bit. We don't need all of them actually. Let's take those side bits off, chamfer it. Okay, and then you've got more to work with again. Start pulling that back. And you've got to clean it up more. But I will say another thing. I mean, obviously, you don't need to create the foot this way. You could create it separately, weld it to it. I would just say that and point that out. You know, if it's something you just want to get an idea very quickly, then obviously, yeah, do it. But you could just create it separately and weld it on later. But anyway, there we go. That's quite simply it. The head would be the last thing that would just need to be fixed, and it's a really quick thing. All you got to do is select those two, stretch that out, and in side view, just simply all we're going to do is rotate this like that, and that's it set up for the neck. Done. And that is it. All done. Yeah, so you can just, if you need to, go and refine it further. But it's pretty straightforward to create basic mesh. It's just down to the detailing now, which just requires more time doing the exact same thing. Anyway, so in the next video we'll go on to the head, but just to conclude this, I'll remerge this, the two halves. So you have to convert this back to an editable poly again, just to break the connection between the two, otherwise it won't let you attach, and attach it to the other side so they become one. Then go into vertex mode, select over the whole thing, go to the weld tool. You'll see here 424 verts before, 405 after. Tick, and done. And there we go. That is it. There's a few little areas actually that I might have missed. If that happens to you, do not panic. Just press collapse and that will be done. So just another tool that's quite useful. Glad I got to show that actually. Anyway, so that is literally it. And at 804 tries for the whole thing, this would be bang on track for quite a low poly model. You know, there's still areas where I could take stuff out. You know, it's probably the feet, to be fair, where I've just added those stupid cuts to round it off. But yeah, for the most part, that's still quite a low amount. Okay, so anyway, thank you for watching. Got any comments? You know, don't be afraid to ask.